Hi, I'm Joseph Tan, and welcome to the Good Monday Show, where we interview leaders to find out what motivates them and keep them going. I'm very happy here today. We have with us Mr. Arun Nagarajah, CEO and founder of eVULX. Hey, Arun, welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
Hey, Arun, tell us a little bit about what eVULX does.
Sure. I mean, at eVULX, what we do is we develop digital and virtual games to help organizations upskill their employees through learning and development, right? We got started somewhere around 2020, and in the last 2 years, that's been our main focus. But we've also kind of taken a different trajectory recently by kind of going into learning and development marketplaces as well, which is something that we're going to be releasing soon. But at our core, we are still about developing games for learning and development.
Hey, eVULX, I had a look at your resume, and where you are in right now is very different from where you were. So would you care to explain a little bit about this transition that you took from a very established environment to a startup, exciting eVULX type of ethos?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I get this question quite a bit from a lot of people. I think, just to give your viewers some background, I kind of started my career in General Electric. I kind of joined the organization in 2011, and I joined as part of a management program, and I spent 2 years there. But the majority of my time in GE was actually spent in aviation, working in operations in our overhaul shop based in Kuala Lumpur. And, I kind of stayed there for most of my career up to the point when I left in 2019. So yes, it was a very established business, been around for, GE has been around for more than 100 years. Yeah. But the shop in Malaysia had been there for close to 25 years as well. So there was a lot of kind of angst when I decided to leave for something new. But that kind of gives you some context on where I came from, like really manufacturing, operations, supply chain. That was my background.
Okay, so as you would probably guess, my next question is not what, but why? Why the move from GE to eVULX?
Yep. Right. So I guess at the heart of it, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I think that was something that I always imagined for myself as a kid growing up. I think I was brought up in a house that my father, he was not an entrepreneur himself. He kind of was a professional lawyer, and he still is. But he kind of developed this understanding that, to have that freedom to be an entrepreneur, to kind of own what you create and what you deliver value, how you deliver value to the world, right? And I kind of took that on at such a young age. And even when I went into GE, I think the fact that I moved from different functions and different roles was also, in hindsight, a way for me to kind of learn different elements of a business, right? From finance, where I started. Then I went into operations. I went into supply chain, also working closely with customer teams. So it kind of gave me a flavor of different aspects of the business, right? The only few roles that I didn't go into was probably IT and HR. But besides that, I kind of ventured into most of the areas that most people would need to run a successful business. And at the end of 2019, when I decided to leave, it was obviously there were a few reasons. Number one, I think I had recently been promoted in 2019, and I remember when I joined GE, I set myself a goal to, and at that time it was called Senior Professional Band, and I told myself, if I ever reach this rank or level in an organization, I would stop there, because I would have achieved what I wanted to achieve, and I would go and pursue it, right? And I kind of created this tangible milestone. Like when I hit it, then I think it's time for me to go and take that leap of faith into a new role. All right. So that was something that was there in the back of my mind when I started in GE. And then secondly, I think personally as well, there were some circumstances that changed in my family. My brother passed away in 2019 through a motor vehicle accident,
Oh,
and
wow.
that kind of also gave me a understanding of the fragility of life, lah. Like that,
Mm,
you might be very young and life might end very suddenly. So rather than spending time working in a role that you feel that there isn't a long-term future for you in that role, I wanted something that I could call my own. Whether it succeeded or failed, I didn't want to have that regret in my life. And
mm,
after he passed away, I kind of thought to myself, this was definitely the best time to go. I had achieved the milestone that I set when I started GE, and then this tragedy in the family happened, and I kind of saw that as indications that I needed to move on. I needed to do something different in my
mm,
life, and
mm,
and so that were I would say the two big motivating factors for me to take the jump. And it's been a roller coaster kind of journey, but I'm very happy that I did it, and it had a lot of risk, obviously, entailed there,
mm,
leaving a very predictable income, I would say, to
mhm,
something that is totally unpredictable. You have to figure it out as you go. You don't have all the answers. The structure
mm,
isn't there, and that's can be quite scary at times. But I think I've learned tons from it. I don't regret that decision at all.
mm. Well, thank you, Arun, for your personal story. I'm sure your brother has been a significant
Yep.
influence in your life, and I'm sorry to hear about your loss. How did your relationship with your brother pan out in terms of how it mold you and shape you in terms of your attitude, not only towards work, but towards life in general?
Well, I was very close to my brother. Growing up, we were only a couple of years apart in terms of age. So we kind of went through school together. We kind of shared very similar experiences growing up. Um, and we were naturally very close, lor. And I think from a very young age in my family on my mother's side, they were very entrepreneurial. They had one of the oldest clinics in Malaysia, which still runs
Mm,
today, over 100 years old. And so
mm,
I had that kind of entrepreneurial element in a part of my family, right? And my brother and I always thought that one day we would create a business and run it together, lah, right? I don't know
mm,
how successful getting into a family business is, but that was a dream, lah, right? That we had, and we thought
mm,
that despite going in different directions, he ended up going to Germany and studying engineering. I ended up going to UK. So there was a lot of time that we spent apart from each other,
mm,
especially after high school. But we always had this common interest that one day we would come together, come back to Malaysia, and build a business and run it together, right? So I
mm,
remember in 2019 he was in KL. I believe around the summertime. I can't remember now, but we had this conversation, and then it was just a few months after that he passed away. So
mm.
I think it kind of shaped me because we had this common interest that we always had at the back
Okay.
of our minds from young, right? And that was one of the big reasons why as well I decided to make the jump, lah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking a hypothetical question, if you were to start up something with your brother, would it be somewhat similar to what you are doing in eVULX now?
I I have no idea. I don't think so. I think we were. I don't think my brother would have chosen learning and development as the business he would move,
Okay.
right? So
Okay.
I think the reason I ended up in learning and development is because of also once I left GE, I kind of knew somebody in Malaysia, Roshan Thiran, who was very famous in the L&D space, and I kind of
Mm,
got into that space uh, unintentionally. It was not
mm,
by it was purely coincidental that I ended up in this
mm,
space. It was not something that I
mm,
had a pre-existing exposure to, lah, right? In a way,
mm, mm.
it was just by happenstance or by coincidence. Yeah.
Mm, mm, mm. And I think just you relating the story of your life journey so far, I've come to realize that sometimes it's not so much about the technical aspect of our dreams, but the people that comes along our way. For example, not only just your brother, you mentioned about Roshan, and I think the people that comes along our way helps to shape our dreams, because I think that the relationship is what molds us to become who we are and who we want to be. Your thoughts?
No, most definitely. I think very few. I think that you could end up in a business that you are very passionate about. But I think if you dig deeper, you would realize that there were people along the way that kind of enable that to happen, right? Whether they were mentors or they were family members or parents, in a way, we kind of are shaped by those interactions and relationships. I totally agree. I think that in my case, definitely it was about the people who were around me, who I surrounded myself with. And plus I had very supporting parents as well, and a very supporting wife and family here as well, right? So in a way it was a good combination of scenarios that kind of led me to this point. Yeah.
Great. Now, what would be your advice to would-be entrepreneurs? Usually young people, they start off with a dream and they are very passionate about the dream. Oh, I want to be like Elon Musk, or I want to be able to achieve this. So when people have their dreams about starting up on their own, they usually think of the business. They think about the business model. They think about all the nice, glamorous stuff as far as the business is concerned. But what I am hearing from you is that relational factor, that is also important in molding that dream. What would be your encouragement to would-be entrepreneurs? Yeah,
I would say obviously, you need to have that foundation before you take a big step forward. I mean, in my case, it really helped to have that foundation, right? Where I understood finance, I understood operations to a certain extent, obviously from a different industry, but I could relate to, how suppliers work, how customers work. So that helped me, especially when I started to get into interacting with different suppliers, different customers, and it helped me understand the rules of the game, I guess, right? So I think for people who are very young, it's not really a boundary, or it's not really a barrier. I think they just need to be able to learn it on the side, right? And learn it quite quickly. So if you're looking to start up your own business, I would say definitely, prioritize understanding finance, because I think sometimes we get very absorbed about the business and we forget about the fact that business is driven by numbers, right? And if you don't have that good grasp, the business can kind of slip through your fingers, right? So having that kind of solid foundation really, really helps, especially if you're being very, very ambitious and very aggressive as well, right? You need to hone that as fast and as early as possible, right? So my suggestion to younger entrepreneurs is obviously don't forgo the dream. I think obviously realize that there is a roadmap, and how do I get to that eventual goal where I start this business? What do I need to do? Maybe 6 months, 12 months, maybe 2 years before I kick off on that dream. Yeah.
Okay, great. Now talking about your dream realized, eVULX, I believe, started in August of 2020. So since the founding and the startup of eVULX till now, what has been the most satisfying achievement for you?
I think last year, 2022, we had a busy year, but we ended up profitable as a business. And I think that's a major milestone in any organization, because you realize that you can pay your employees better, you can improve their lives, you can potentially pay bonus as well. And
the finance part, right?
Yeah, and to me that is important because essentially businesses are created not to just add value to the market, but also to add value to the employees and their families, right?
Mm,
So to me, being able to do that, I think was the most satisfying thing, because I think in
mm,
2021 it was our first year we didn't break even. We were at a loss making position, which is very normal for, I think, for a startup. But being profitable in our second year was a major milestone, and I'm pretty proud of that. Obviously, the challenge gets greater this year, so you have to start from
yeah.
zero and keep on progressing, right? And hopefully we are in a better position at the end of the year. Yeah.
Great, great. I'm glad you mentioned that your achievement is not so much the product that you produce, because I was expecting Arun to say, "Oh, this is the great product that we have designed and rolled out of the production floor, so to speak." But you spoke about your people and in
Mhm.
caring for them like a family. So that's wonderful to hear. But 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 I hate to break the bad news, but I don't think you're a perfect leader, Arun. I am sure there are moments you feel like giving up, just like I do. And
Definitely.
during those moments when life is less than picture perfect, because not everything can be very dreamy all the way, although we have
Right.
dreams.
Yep.
Um, what do you do during those moments when you feel like throwing in the towel? If you could share with us either a recent episode or something that that is quite fresh in your mind.
Sure. I mean, I think definitely, yeah, every business, anyone who runs a business will have these kind of challenges that they have to go through. I think for me,
Mm,
maybe an example would be um, at the beginning of last year, really having a clear path to profitability was a very big challenge. Even it is today as well. I won't
mm,
kid you, um, but I think in times of that kind of struggle, you have to realize that uh, it's a lot better struggle to have than being in a position where you don't have control over the situation. I think that when I was in GE, I was pretty successful in the role, but I felt
mm,
that I wasn't charting my own destiny. And in this
mm,
case, despite the hurdles, I feel that all of it contributes to that personal journey for myself, right? As a
mm,
entrepreneur. So that kind of keeps me in check. But also, I think you got to be able to manage your stress. And for me, I, I
mm, mm,
I try to run a lot when I have kind of tougher episodes in my life. I feel it. I think it's been part of my life for many years. So I use it as a way to kind of overcome some of those more challenging periods. But just having the balance and having the family around me has been a big help for me personally.
Okay. Yeah, tell me a little bit more about the family part,
Right.
because I find that a lot of leaders talk about, okay, I'm doing this for my family,
Mm,
I'm doing this for my family. But actually, when you take a look at their schedule and what they do, they spend more time in the office than with their family. So whether if they're really doing it for the family, that
yeah.
remains in doubt. But you mentioned family as one of your sources of motivation. Talk about it.
Right. I think it's for me. I come from a very tight family. I think we are not a big family, but we are very tight. And this is not just my nucleus family. It's kind of the bigger family as well. Um, and to me, I think I'm very fortunate to be in a family that is very, very supportive. Not just my
Mm,
parents, but the broader community of my relatives as well.
mm,
Um, and to me, I think it's more about the historical context of the family, right, and where we came from and where we
mm,
are today. I think from my father's side, they grew up relatively poor, but they showed that within a generation you can turn around your fortunes, right? And I grew up relatively comfortable, I would say, compared to a lot of families in Malaysia, and I'm very grateful for
mm,
that. But I feel that I have a need to continue to propel the family further ahead. right? I think families rise and fall in a way, and I'm very cognizant about that because on my mother's side, a couple of generations ago, they were extremely wealthy, and then they kind of took a dip, and now slowly coming back up. And I feel that
Mm,
all families kind of go through this transition of ups and downs over the
mm,
generations, right?
mm,
And to me, that is something that I'm very aware of because of the ability that we have to be able to trace back the history of family. So I'm very in tune to that, but I also realize that I have an obligation to the family to also feel that I'm contributing in a bigger way, not just earning a bigger salary. I think,
mm,
you can always earn a bigger salary and you can always go to new countries and work in other countries. But to me, it was more than just the salary. I think it's like, how do I create impact? How do I bring
mm,
the family forward into the next generation? And I hope that is the lesson that I'm trying to pass down to my children, that you don't need to follow the traditional route. You can take the path less traveled, I guess, and you can also have success, whatever that means to you as an individual or your family. So to me, that's how I looked at it, and I still look at it that way. um, and I guess it's different from everyone, right? Everyone comes from different perspectives and circumstances, and my circumstance was very different too. Yeah.
mm. Okay. Thank you for bringing that into perspective. Just to shift gears a little bit, just now
Mhm.
you were talking about running as your source of
Yeah.
motivation. Besides running, how else do you feed yourself, motivate yourself so that you have that energy to
Mm,
just keep you going in the race of life, so to speak?
right. So I think I think it's a combination of things. I think that definitely I read a lot, and from the books that I read, from the people that I learn, mentors that I have, but even the friends that I have. I think a lot of people underestimate the impact of friendship, and
Mm,
sometimes getting away from work
mm,
and engaging in with friends and traveling with friends has a huge impact, right, on
mm,
me coming back refreshed and being able to get back into the whole running of a business and the challenges that's around it. So I think you need
mm,
to be able to find pockets of opportunities where you can detach yourself from the business itself and say that, I have
mm,
friends, I have conversations, I can read books, I can travel, and that kind of reinvigorates me as well. Kind of gives me a new sense of purpose whenever I come back or whenever I travel with the
mm,
family. That's
mm,
been a good way for me to be able to sustain myself. Um, and I would say, lastly, I think you need to know yourself. I think when I was working in the GE in the shop, in the aviation shop, it was a very, very stressful environment. We were running the shop
mm,
24/7, 7 days a week, pretty much. And you needed to figure out a way, how do you manage that workload while not burning out in the process? And I think early on in my career, I figured out a system that worked for me. And I kind of still deploy it today, because I realized that it helped me in a role where the requirements were people were working 24/7. It's literally a job that has very little boundary. So you need to be able to
mm,
create that for yourself. Otherwise, you end
mm,
up burning out very quickly, right? And I managed to be there for nearly
mm,
8 years. So I figured out a system that effectively worked for me, right? And I continue to use that today even.
mm. Yeah, I'm so glad that you mentioned the factor of friendship
Yep.
because I think relationships that are close has a way of refreshing us, of recharging
Yep.
us, so to speak. And I think particularly in this world of technology, we are more connected, but sometimes we feel isolated as well.
Yep.
So
Definitely.
so my take is that there needs to be some intentionality work into our schedule to establish those friendships.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I think for me personally, I have a very close group of friends, and on an annual basis, we take trips around the region, and we've been
Wow.
doing that for I would say close to 7-8 years. These were friends that I had from my time in GE, and they continue to be very close friends. And we still
Uh-huh.
continue to do these things, right? And on
Wow.
on Fridays we tend to go out for lunch, not every week, but that was kind of a habit I took back from GE, and I continue it because I think it's a good habit,
Okay.
and that kind of helps me, right? I think that exactly you need to have that intentional nature of finding time to meet friends. And in our case, we already had that kind of schedule in
Yeah.
place, lah. So we didn't have
Yeah.
to work hard at that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So no entrepreneur is an island.
Oh, for sure, no one. Yeah, definitely.
Hey, talking about books, you know, if you were to write one book, Arun, maybe you have. What would be the title of that book, and what would you want to convey? Maybe this might start you thinking about your next dream.
Wow. Wow, that's a difficult one. I think if you ask me, my experience in GE, and especially in the shop, taught me one thing that I think I take away quite a lot, and I try to impart it in my in eVULX and the employees, is that leadership can change the world and it can
Mm,
change countries, right? I think
mm,
when I was in GE, we had a leader there, the CEO of the shop, effectively, that had a very unique style of leadership, and he used to
mm,
always relate it to, are we doing enough in our roles to be proud to be Malaysians, and to be proud of the value that we are providing, not only our customers but to the country that we are in? Are we doing enough to be world class,
mm, mm.
to be setting a standard that we
Yeah.
are proud, and that we can be proud if our children come and work in the shop? And
Mm,
I take that as a very strong lesson, that even if you run a business, you can be very successful, but are you creating the right impact, not only for yourself in terms of salary, but also are you creating impact in the larger society in general? Are you creating impact in the country that
mm,
you are in and the people that you serve? So to me, I think
mm.
if I were to write a book, it would be about that, how leadership can really turn around a country, a society, even a group of 400,
Wow.
500 people in your company, right?
Okay.
That would be what
Okay.
I would write about, I guess, if I would ever write a book.
Okay. Well, let me suggest a title: Turn Around Leadership.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's great. Now, if right now, August 2020, eVULX have started. You guys have been around for 2 years now. What would you how would you describe the next phase? What's the next big
Yeah.
thing that you and the eVULX family are heading toward?
Yeah, so it's a good question and the right time. I think this year is going to be a big pivot for us. I think what we realized is that there is a gap in the learning and development market, and one area that we can help in is to create this ecosystem or this marketplace
Mm,
where
mm,
people can connect to trainers and
okay.
connect to customers in a much more efficient way, right? I think in the end, the end goal, the end mission is to enable more people in Malaysia or globally to be trained, right? Not enough people are being trained, not enough people are being developed. And making the system a lot more transparent, accessible,
Mm,
eventually will cascade that down to more people. Right? And
mm,
as a result, I hope that more organizations get into learning and development. Even even the organizations which today we think, well, they don't do training, like law firms, or like certain professional organizations. We think that learning and development has not been something that they have done
mm,
for
mm,
ages. How do we bring that to that level of
mm,
organization too, right? And I think that's
mm.
where we are thinking of pushing the business to, and this is going to be the year that we are really going to kick that process off, right? So
Okay.
to me, that's the big shift that we're going to take in the next few years. Yeah.
Mm. Great. Well, one final question, Arun, since you're
Yeah.
talking about learning and development, which happens to be my pet topic. So when it comes to learning and development, what would be that one leadership learning lesson that you would like people to take away after interacting with you as a leader? What would be your leadership learning message
Right.
to our viewers? Yeah.
I would say the biggest learning lesson that I can impart you with is always get your hands dirty. I think
Mm,
go down to the floor and really in a Malay way we say turun padang, but to
mm,
me this is something that I really believe that where you're
mm.
willing to do whatever you're asking your people to do, right? I think that kind of
Exactly.
builds that trust and belief that that my leader understands me, because they
Mm,
know exactly what they're asking of me. They can
fantastic.
actually execute it themselves, right? So it's not an order. It's kind of like um a, a, a leadership style that kind of
Mm,
builds trust over the long term, right? And I think that's the fastest and most honest way you can build leadership and trust among people, that you are willing to come down and to understand their challenges and to participate and to also do what you have to do with them, right, to get things done.
mm,
That would be my leadership philosophy, I think, and I hope that people take that same idea, whether you're a startup
mm.
owner or you're running a MNC or you're in the government. I think you need to be able to turun padang or come down to the ground, right, to handle the issues. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I love the way you say it about turun padang, about going to the floor.
yep,
Turun padang for our viewers, it means in Malay, getting right down to the field, the football field, and
yeah,
start playing the game. And I think this is so needful because I think, Arun, most of the time, leaders get comfortable and we build fences around us.
definitely,
We build protective fences. This is my territory. We become territorial instead of going down to the shop floor to engage
exactly.
with people who are experiencing the pain and the struggles, and to understand them and to work together as a family.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, a good practice that I used to do in GE, and I think a lot of people do still, is that we kind of had our offices, where we would sit in. But I
Mm,
always like to take my laptop down and sit on the production floor
mm,
for a day or two, or sometimes move around the shop, and people would see me sitting down next to the aviation parts, and
mm,
it kind of made the relationship easier because I was a lot more approachable versus if I was sitting in an office with the door closed, right?
mm,
And you could feel the environment that they were in, whether it was hot or it was cold
mm.
or it was really sweaty and things were difficult to manage.
Yeah,
You could feel the stress on the floor, and I think you can't do that if you're sitting in an office. You have to experience it right next to the person who is actually doing the
exactly.
actual action, right? So I
Exactly.
think a good way of doing that is take your laptop and move out of your office lah, and
Yeah.
just come down and sit next to the live parts and see how things change, right? How your perspective changes as well. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. It's about perspective. Now, as we come to the concluding part of our time
Yeah.
together, I'd like to summarize my learning from my conversation with you, Arun,
Sure.
in three areas. And the three areas are firstly family. Because when we want to pursue our dreams, no matter what our dreams are, if we do not have our family with us,
Mhm.
that dream becomes hollow. It becomes a very self-centered dream, you know.
Yep.
So family is very important. Secondly is friendships, because you can only go as far as those who travel with you. I think there's a saying, right? If you want to go fast, you kind of go on your own. But if you want to travel far, you need to travel together with someone, something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, yeah. But
No, yeah.
but friendship is very important. Most of the time we are on a ship, but we don't have friends. So we don't have friendships. So friendship is the second thing I've learned from you, Arun, which is such a precious reminder. And then thirdly is floor. Going right down to the floor and engaging with people and getting your hands dirty. Then you know what business and what real life experience is. Right. So family, friendship, and going to the floor. Thank you very much, Arun. This has really been a wonderful conversation to kickstart 2023. And I wish you all the best, Arun, not only just in your position in eVULX, but what you're doing in life with your family and friendships. And I do really look forward to the future impact that you'll be making, not only just in Malaysia, but around the world. And when your book on turnaround leadership comes out, I'll be the first one to buy it.
Thanks, Joseph. Thank you for having me on the show. It was a pleasure.
All right. Thank you very much, Arun, for joining the Good Monday show. Thank you.